Welcome everyone. My name is Susan Patterson. I am the host of this YouTube channel, Winning the Fight Against Human Trafficking and Child Exploitation. We win the fight by teaching everyone their part, which is the mission of this YouTube channel. We accomplish that mission by inviting the community, people who are true heroes and heroines in the fight, as well as experts to share what they are doing. Ken Henry is one of those experts, and we are grateful to Ken for him allowing us to include his video on the impact of culture on human trafficking at our channel. Ken has been involved in almost every aspect of this issue and currently is the head of operations for Alive, a nonprofit that supports survivors of human trafficking. He is also very active in the Houston area in teaching Black churches their role to prevent human trafficking as part of his involvement in the National Black Faith Coalition Against Human Trafficking. You can find the web links for Ken's radio show as well as his nonprofit in the video description below. Do visit our website to find more videos on what you can do, and please support our work by subscribing to this channel and liking this video. Now let's join Ken.
We have songs like Yo Gotti, right, featuring the queen herself, Nicki Minaj, with I Rake It Up. I tell all my hoes, break it up. That's the theme of the song. Now, if that is not paying homage to the pimp and hoe industry, I don't know what it is. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Ken Henry, aka the King Connector of the King Connector Show. King Connector Show, many of you know, it's the inspirational platform where I run around doing interviews with all these inspirational people, to include business owners, nonprofit directors, just normal citizens doing inspirational things in the world. However, today I want to talk to you about something that you may not know that I'm involved in and have been involved in since 2015, and that is the dark world and epidemic of human trafficking. Yes, human trafficking, it does exist, and not just around the world, but also in our nation, the great US of A. Most recently, though, although I've been working in so many different aspects of that, from LA and Texas and different places, DC, I want to talk about the epidemic that we're having, the challenge that we're having within the Black community. That is very personal to me, as you can see, being as a Black man. I feel it's my responsibility not only to get the message out, but to also figure out what can we do to strategize, mobilize, and to heal our community. And so we've been doing that. I've recently become co-founder and director of an amazing organization, Alive, that's based out of Houston, Texas, where we're really on the ground and making a lot of efforts there as well, as we continue to do work nationally, especially Los Angeles County. So what we're going to talk about is cultural barriers. I truly believe that before we can heal a community and rid our communities of this type of epidemic, we need to understand how can the community heal, and the healing needs to be done from the inside. So of all my research that I've done working with all types of survivors and law enforcement and all of these experts in HT, there are 4 things that I find in our community, the Black culture, that we really need to address when it comes down to cultural barriers. One being historical trauma, the second being miseducation, the third being stigma, and the last one being pop culture, hip hop. All these things that we praise that have become such a staple in our community and has actually caused an identity for us around the world. We want to talk about these things. So first one we want to talk about is the historical trauma. And here's the history of Black people in America is heavily tied to the trauma as a result of slavery. The physical and psychological effects of slavery on the Black American community was devastating, and is devastating, because we're still feeling the effects today. Blacks in America are still healing from many aspects of the sexual exploitation and the generations of normalizing this and the objectification of the Black female and male body form. And we've accepted this also inside the community, is what we must realize. Okay, so in order for us to do, we have to know that history, that is our first form of human trafficking in this country, was the Atlantic slave trade. And we know all the horrific things that happen and what that does to a person's dignity, it does to their psyche. And so we are still generations and generations of just suppressing, because we had no choice of just getting through this stuff. But we have to wonder, how much of that indoctrination do we still have today? How many of these unhealthy, dysfunctional aspects of our culture have we just accepted that was not us? Because let's make sure we're very clear that slavery is not African culture. Slavery interrupted African culture. And all of our African brothers that are native to Africa can attest to this, and many of them have. And so we have to understand that plays a major, major role. So we must start there looking at the history, like how did this come about, right? Has there been any healing? And I feel like for the first time, we're really starting to address these things. Unfortunately, it has come by way of this dark epidemic. The second thing we want to talk about is the miseducation. So of course, when you're going to have this historical trauma, and no one's really going deep into this, and remember, we're talking specifically as it relates to sex trafficking, human sex trafficking, you're going to have a miseducation of things, because now you're hit with this, what we call this darkness. You're hit with this, what we say, prostitution, this pimping and hoeing, right? And in our mind, oh, they want to live this lifestyle. They want to be on drugs. They're choosing this. We didn't understand there's a such thing as coercion, right? And fraud and force into lifestyles, all right? And these drugs are now put into these people's systems as a form of control. So there's a miseducation there that we must really understand. So the black community in America, we've been, as you know, faced with this heavy burden of dealing with sexual exploitation for hundreds of years, as we just talked about. And that psychological impact of the years on this is just causes conditioning. The conditioning, and even it has hit in our religious realms. As you know, as a people, we're very, very spiritual by nature. And so we can even find in churches a lot of times where they have been outcasted, those who become caught up in a world of trafficking, or AKA, with the miseducation, prostitution, the pimping and hoeing. So we have got to start to really educate. And I'm so thankful for movements like, you know, the National Black Faith Coalition Against Trafficking, that I'm honored to be one of the co-founders of and leaders in, because we are changing that narrative. We're actually educating folks on what it really means and how to distinguish these terms and to see the complexity of cultures within cultures as it relates to human sex trafficking. You know, everyone is not being kidnapped and taped and chained. Right? There's coercion, there's force, there's fraud, there's poverty as a factor of this thing here. All pimps that come in the game for the same reason, as we're now learning by pimps coming out, being healed themselves and transformed to speaking their truth. So as a community, we're responsible, those of us who have the education, to make sure the rest of us get this education so that we can get on to the proper healing. Now we'll move on to stigma, the third one. Stigma is a result, and again, as you may, hopefully you're noticing, I'm doing chronological. The historical trauma, it starts there. Then that gives us a miseducation, because now we're confused. We don't know who we are, what's going on, and now we're down to this stigma, because all we're dealing with is the physical, in our face, what is happening, this pimping, this hoeing, this prostitution that we don't really understand the game of. So it causes this stigma, as I alluded to a little earlier. So the realm of human sex trafficking is not only brutal and disheartening, but it's also complex. As our world wakes up to the war on human trafficking, we learn more of how wide, how deep these waters run. Before receiving recent education in this arena, the stigma that had been attached to sex trafficking is that all women and men who allowed their bodies and sex in exchange for money chose this lifestyle and are nothing more than the prostitutes and the pimps and the hoes, right? This was looked down upon. They were shunned away by the community. And again, yes, including the spiritual community in many times, right? What's that old saying? You know, grandma, grandpa takes the kids. Mom gets involved in this. They think mom just wanted to do this. So we're going to protect the babies. We're not going to really go after mom and try to help. She wasn't reared that way. She knows better than that. So when she gets done, then she'll come, right? Because we thought it was such a choice. And that's how we looked at it and stigmatized this, right? So yeah, they were looked down upon. And in some cases, like I said, the church did it as well, which a lot of them are now. This is why we have such a difficult time of the church showing their love and embracing because of this stigma and because of this outcasting that happened. So another stigma placed on the victims and survivors of sex trafficking is that they chose a lifestyle that got them involved because they were playing in the wrong arenas, and so they shouldn't have been there. And so again, you see a spirit of judgment, and you spend a lack of love because of this ignorance attached to it, this miseducation. And so these are just a few of the many stigmas placed on them. We can go on and on with more, but it's going to take us to educate, which is why this video is happening right now. All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about the last one, cultural competency. All of these are very, very important, as I say, but I will definitely say cultural competency is something that is here now and is a pretty hard pill to swallow for most of us because of this indoctrination and this identity, how I believe a lot of these cultures that we've accepted in the Black community, we've accepted as our identity. So cultural competency is significant because it will majorly influence one's approach to combating sex trafficking. Understanding and attaining competency with culture of human sex trafficking and how it plays out in the Black culture is significant. There are different cultures even within human sex trafficking, and so it is so the case, it's not like one size fits all. All right, so everybody, as I said earlier, is not put into this world because they were kidnapped and chained, right? There's that force, there's that coercion, as I said, that's the fraud, which is that standard definition of what human sex trafficking is, how people are being used, pulled in that way, and they're being exploited and moved, for money. So we have that understanding, hopefully. Right? So most reported victims and survivors of sex trafficking, it's proven they're coerced, they're forced and manipulated by fraud. But there are still others that chose the life of sex trafficking as a vehicle out of a life of poverty. We've heard that from survivors. We've heard that from actual, guys who were traffickers, who were in the pimp game. And once the competency of how, persons ending up in this world is understood and attained, now we can be on to kind of healing and kind of helping effectively in this anti-sex trafficking movement. All right, so to understand the effects of sex trafficking and that it's having on the Black marginalized community, one must understand the strengths as well as the challenges of the community. Even within the Black marginalized communities, there are cultures within cultures. Not all people in that community think, respond, and have the same level of resources available to them. On the other hand, when we look at the impact of human sex trafficking in the middle class and affluent Black community, we see a closer thought process, response, and greater access to resources to include sex trafficking education. The last but definitely not least piece of the cultural barriers is pop culture, specifically hip-hop industry, good old hip-hop, which started as really a movement. And I'm a music guy, I love hip-hop, right? But hip-hop has evolved it's a far reach from what it was when it started out as political statements and talking about the impact of the community that was having in urban communities and in marginalized communities, the disenfranchisement that happened, the police brutality, the hardships that they were facing. And now it's become this glamorized thing of objectifying women. So the same stuff that was put on us, we've adopted and doing that to ourselves. And we are objectifying and we are worshiping the money and by any means necessary. And we are worshiping these beasts between each other, which is tearing down the community. We have songs like Yo Gotti, right? Featuring the queen herself, Nicki Minaj, with I Rake It Up. I tell all my hoes, rake it up. That's the theme of the song. Now, if that is not paying homage to the pimp and hoe industry, I don't know what it is. Even if you look at the video, you can see, Nikki and the other girls, they're in the stilettos, the shark, and they have an actual rake. And they're raking up money and they're dropping. And the song said, back it up, break it down. And so, again, you have these things. And you have other folks that are, huge in the hip-hop world already. So currently we have Cardi B, right, who is, yes, she's a wife, a mother. In a lot of regards, I respect all of them because they've come from hard circumstances and they've worked damn hard to get themselves out by doing what they knew to do. But at the same time, we have to look at them, we have to be honest, right? Glorifying, making the money as a stripper, it just reinforces men in this porn world and people objectifying the body and women saying I can use my body for money, right? So I think there's many things that we can do. I'm not the guy we're going to sit here and judge because there's no bad people in the world. We have bad moments and we make mistakes, all of us, including myself. And we all have some type of change we need to break and healing that needs to happen. But we must speak truth to one another. It is imperative, and especially as a community. Now, do I can still fight for everyone in HT? Absolutely. I don't want anyone coerced and forced into a life of trafficking and being brutalized or used or done wrong at all. However, I am a black man. In my community, I see a problem in it. And so I have to love my community enough to address this, and not just address it, but be involved in helping bring change and working with others. So that's what this video is about, is understanding just more education and awareness, guys. And we really have historical trauma in our culture. We really have a major miseducation. I mean, I have the book right over on the shelf over here, which is one of my favorite books I love reading, that talks about the miseducation of the Negro. I think it is a powerful book, and I think most blacks should definitely read that. You may not agree with everything in it, but it definitely will put some things in perspective. And it relates to the things that we're dealing with now, like how did we get here? Okay, so you have that, and the stigma that we must remove so that we can begin to heal, so we can be able to understand and start seeing one another as human beings, as we are called to do. And lastly, culture. We've got to honestly be responsible for this culture that we have created and that we've embraced that is hurting us. So any aspect, this is no shade to you, Cardi B, because I like it like that. I like certain songs, Nicki Minaj, and I see all the great things that you guys do as people, Yo Gotti and all that outside of that music realm, but we got to take responsibility and start healing. It's not about money. It's about our people, and we need money. Yes, we do. Money is not the root to all evil, like they say. If the person's intent is evil, then, because money can do a lot of great things, including a lot of these human trafficking organizations that we have that have safe housings, that have mental health services, that have job programs and things of that nature that is helping victims to heal and to create a life for themselves. But we as a community, I'm calling us to be real and to be honest and to stop, don't be in the middle. Okay, because I understand, you take a certain stance, people want to get pissed at you, but we got to be on the side of love at all costs. And that, in order to do that, we can't judge and we can't put each other down, but we gotta call each other up. Love is speaking truth. So I love you guys. I just wanted to share that. Check out the video. We'll be on the different sites, including the King Connector show, of course. That's on YouTube. King Connector, remember, connectors with a K. And also we have the National Black Faith Coalition. We have the Through God's Grace Ministry, that website, and that's throughgodsgrace.com. And you'll see a lot of the work that we're doing nationally here, from the faith community to the non-faith community. We're just loving imperfect people trying to do this perfect thing called love. So I love you guys. Be well, be great. Tune in.